Hey, hi Arya. Welcome. Welcome to Performance Seminar. Okay, and thank you so much for being able to do today. So hopefully you got a little more time to practice here.
Mhm.
And what hold on, let me make sure our live stream is going. I think it is. Okay. Yes, it's running. All right. So Arya, is this your first, have you done a performance seminar before? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I've done it like a lot of times before.
Okay, good. So you're a pro at this now. So
Mhm.
make sure that you've got number one that you're set up so that your original sound is enabled so it's not cutting off your piano because it thinks it's background noise. um Go ahead, and if you're all set, can you tell us the name of the piece you're playing and the composer, and then you can go ahead and start and we'll talk about it a little bit. Okay.
But I do need the music.
Okay. Yeah, I'll show you. Okay.
Um, my name is Arya. I'm playing Casa by Carl Cerny,
Hmm.
and I'm playing the Primo.
Oh, you're playing the primo. Okay, gotcha. Oh, here we go. All right. All right, great job. Nice work there, are you?
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, that was sounding terrific. Okay, so what was something you were happy about with that performance? What do you think went well?
I like that my transitions were a bit smoother.
Yeah, no, it sounded like you had a good idea of, where you were moving at different points in the piece. So there was, yeah, there's not a lot of thinking time between sections. You knew where to go.
Mhm.
Nice. So so tell me, as you were working with it, I know it's not memorized, so that's okay. Um, what was something what was something that was difficult about learning this piece?
Mm, the rhythm.
Oh, the rhythm. Okay, so specifically, what about the rhythm? Which
Like when I was doing it before, I was doing it with the metronome, and
Mhm.
I couldn't really do the transitions. And I was doing it with the metronome because I couldn't get the rhythm either. So
Hmm.
I guess that was kind of hard for me.
Okay. So which particular transitions are you talking about?
Um, from the first line to the second line.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and it's okay. So let's talk about that. Let's get into that. So I felt like you had a good sense of the rhythm now, first of all. But yeah, so let's talk about why this might be a little bit trickier to keep track of in the rhythm, right? So let's build up all of the different note values that you're seeing in this piece, right? So note values just meaning like the rhythm, right? The notes rhythm. Um, okay. So what kinds of notes do we have? So the left hand mostly, I mean, almost the whole piece. The left hand has what kind of note?
Whole note,
Whole note, right?
harmonic note.
Yeah, a lot of whole notes. Now your right hand, on the other hand, has what? So we've got
It has quarter notes,
quarter notes,
dotted half notes,
Dotted half note. Does it have a dotted
Uh,
half note?
and
I don't see any dotted half notes. I do see some half notes.
I mean not half dotted half notes, dotted quarter notes.
Dotted quarter. Are there dotted quarter notes?
Well, there are quarter notes with dots on top of them.
Yeah. Okay. So what is the dot? The dot on top means what?
Uh, I think it means legato.
It's staccato, right? So it's an articulation. If something. So think of it this way. I know it's, and this is one of the um, less clear things about staccato. Um, is when you've got the dot above or below the note head. That's telling you staccato, right? That's telling you about articulation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, if you've got a dot after the note, that's when it's rhythmic. Does that make sense? So
Mm-hmm.
not ideal. Ideally, we would have like not a dot for both things, right? But at least the location of the dot is a little bit different, right? So we've got a regular half note,
Then we
um,
have
and then
quarter
we've
note,
also got quarter notes, and the fastest kind of note we get is what?
eighth note.
Eighth note, right? And so here's what I mean is your left hand only, I mean, except like the second to last measure, right? That's all your left hand ever has is whole notes.
Mm-hmm.
Your right hand has a lot of different rhythms that are, we're kind of mixing all three of these kinds of notes, right? So let's talk about why that's tricky. Um, and I'm gonna see if I can, one second, let me open something so we can make a picture here. Okay. All right. Can you see this? Can you see the little whiteboard? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's build it from eighth notes in this piece, right? So first of all, when you see and I know we can't go back and forth between the music, but when you look at the eighth notes in this piece, right? Remember, if we have an eighth note all by itself,
Mm-hmm.
you could write it like, this. You could see it written like this. You've
Mm-hmm.
got your note head, you've got the stick, the beam, I mean excuse me, the stem of the note. And
Mm-hmm.
then if it's by itself, you have that little flag to show you that it's not a quarter note, right? You can add the little flag. Now, the thing is, if you have a lot of eighth notes, you'll often see that you connect some of them with a beam or a bar. That's what we call that thing. So do you notice in this piece how many eighth notes get connected by a beam?
A lot of them. Four, I guess.
Four, right? So and this is something that's not necessarily brought up a lot at the beginning, but it is pretty important, right? So one thing that we run into later is like how do you know which eighth notes to connect and then like which ones not to connect, right? So let's build it up this way. Let's say, and not all the actual rhythms in the piece do this, but let's just pretend we've got, a constant stream of eighth notes, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's just happening out in space, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's our next slowest note after that that's in the piece is a quarter note, right?
Yeah.
So if we had a constant stream of quarter notes going on at the same time, where would those go? So if this is our first quarter note,
The other one would go like on the third, eighth note.
mm-hmm, right? So one way of thinking of that, right? There's going to be two eighth note pulses during one quarter note, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's do the same thing with half notes. If we had a half note starting at the beginning, where is the next half note going to start?
The next half note's going to start at the start of the other
Mm-hmm.
eighth note.
Yeah, so notice what are our beams kind of showing us with eighth notes? they're kind of matching it. They're showing you how it fits inside one half note, right? And then of course our left hand just has one whole note, which lasts this whole time. And then
Mm-hmm.
we start over again, right? So all that is to say, what's tricky about the rhythm in this piece is that the left hand is doing this, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't get any of these layers happening at the same time. Your right hand either has to have one, one, and then you switch to that, and then we switch back to eighth, right? So there's not a lot that you're playing that
Mm-hmm.
can measure. So usually you can sometimes, if like your left hand has like a pattern, then you can use that constant pulse to kind of measure the different rhythms in your right hand, say, for example.
Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But in this case, right, your right hand's almost just like playing any of these over just like a whole note, right? And a whole note doesn't have a lot of things happening inside it. You just get the one start of the note and that's it, right? So that's why keeping track of the rhythms is a little trickier in this piece. We don't have like a consistent pulse going on somewhere to kind of measure against, right?
Yeah.
So here's what I would do, right? So we are measuring these right hand rhythms correctly. Um, I would imagine not just the quarter note pulse, but I would imagine the eighth note pulse happening
Mm-hmm.
during all rhythms, right? Not just when there's written eighth notes. Okay, so let me show. Oh, 1 second. I'm going to get out of this real quick. Let's go back to our music, right? So let's try. Can you try your right hand alone, maybe for the very first line? And
Okay.
what we want to imagine is that there are more eighth notes happening during this, if that makes sense. So we got bum, 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 bum. Right. So we want to imagine that there's silent eighth notes happening.
Mm-hmm.
Bum, 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 bum. Right. Does that make sense? And continue those throughout the whole line. So now can you try your right hand?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Okay. So I think your rhythmic understanding there was good. So now, if when we go to practice this sort of thing, right? Did you notice in when you were playing through your right hand, right? Which part did you start to have to slow down to think more?
I guess around the third measure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was probably just here. Um, Now, what did you think was difficult about this measure, if you had to guess?
I guess the notes aren't that simple, and the same
Mm.
rhythm goes along the same. Uh,
Mhm. So yeah, it's the same rhythm, which I think you understand what the rhythm needs to be. I don't think that's the problem. I think it's the note pattern is like you said, right? It's less straightforward. So notice in these first couple things, right, we're playing straight through each finger, right? So you're right, there's something that's a little bit more straightforward about playing just if you play through each finger, right? So we go up, da 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 da, right? So that's kind of easy to think about and remember. What's different about this?
I guess because you go high and then you go low and then you go high again.
Yeah. So when we talk about kind of the shape that the notes make, you can talk about contour. So contour just meaning like, if you think about like a landscape or something or a right? Something with a texture has contour, right? You've got ups and downs, right? So the contour in these first two measures is really straightforward, right? You're going consistently, we're moving up by steps, or we're moving consistently down by steps every time, right? And that means you're just going through your fingers. What's tricky here is that, yeah, the contour gets a little more complicated. So number one, we're starting on two. But yeah, you're kind of going up by step, then you're moving back, then you're moving up, right? So there's a lot of shifts of direction in that line all of a sudden, right? So something you can do, right? What we talked about is steps. Whenever you have a little series of steps in one direction, that's pretty easy, right? So you know you're going to have steps moving up here. Then what happens next?
You go down.
So we skip back down to, and this is important, notice we skip back down to where we started.
Hmm.
And then we keep going
Up.
up, right? To almost, if we had continued by steps, notice we would have gotten here, right? So just practice that by itself and think about aiming. So not so much when you jump back, but think about aiming for that G in your fifth finger. Ba-da-da-da-da.
Hmm.
Yeah, there, right? So did you feel, so when we mapped this out, right? What we did, and I know this is a little tricky, but I think it's something to start thinking about, which will be useful, right? I mapped out sort of something that was in a stepwise line, right? And then you can see in the contour of this, we kind of hop back to the beginning note before we keep going.
Hmm.
So when you play that, bring the energy of that to your practice, right? So, and just know we want to hear that F keep going to the G. Does that make sense? So try that one more time with that new energy. Yeah, and then same. So that one's a little different. Ba-da-na-na-na. Right. So good. So the takeaway here, right? That was sounding great, Arya. So does that make sense how to kind of practice identifying kind of the trickier shapes in your line and
Yeah.
then working through it, right? So
Hmm.
the takeaway, right, is be number one, zoom in on your practice time, use it to zoom in on just the areas where something's tricky.
Hmm.
And then number two, for what we're talking about here, right? Really study the shape of the melody and kind of try to figure out where the twists and turns are. Either you'll be able to see kind of a straight line behind the jumps, or if it is, sometimes you will just have a switch in the overall direction. That's going to help you see your outlining notes that you can really think of working towards as you play. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So really nice work, Arya. Again, this sounded great. I just wanted to go through because we got into some trickier kind of polishing issues, but these will help you, if when you're really practicing detail work on finishing a piece. Okay. So just some things to think about. Thanks. Sounds great, Arya. Have a great weekend. Okay. I'll see you next time you play.
Okay.
Bye. Great work.
Bye.